Hey guys, it's Tealus here. Welcome back to Temple of the Five Dawns. This is the class order hall for monks in World of Warcraft Legion, and since this is the last monk spec we will be looking at, this will be the last time we are here. In this video we will be looking at the Brewmaster Monk. This is the first of two videos looking at Brewmaster Monk. In this first video we'll be looking at the changed, new, and removed abilities for Brewmaster Monk, as well as looking at the artifact weapon for a Brewmaster Monk, which you can see right here on my back. It's kind of simple, but I kind of think it plays into the monk lore and so forth. So I really do like it, and do remember that if you're not a big fan of the artifact weapon, there are different forms of the artifact weapon, and you can just straight transmog out of it if you really don't like it. However, as I said, this video will be about the abilities section, and the abilities part of changes for a Brewmaster Monk, as well as the artifact weapon and what it provides. And then in the second video we'll be looking at the changes to PvE and PvP talents for a Brewmaster Monk. PvE changes and the new PvP talent. So one is brand new, the other are getting changes. But this is the last time we will be at the Temple of the Five Dawns, so do enjoy it, unless I come back here for a little kind of overview of, kind of a tour of a class order hall. Now, before I get into the removed, changed, and new abilities for a Brewmaster Monk, I would like to go over some of the major changes that are coming to Brewmaster Monk in World of Warcraft Legion. Now, I did mention in several videos of these tank videos that I've done so far that basically the tanks are trying to diversify the tanks. They're trying to give each tank its own little niche, its own little kind of portion, segment of the a combat world, I guess you could say, in which they're unique in how they do their defenses, how they stay alive, and we've seen it already through Guardian Druids. Guardian Druids are the big bear with a massive health pool that stays alive and has some ways to mitigate damage through that. Like Iron Skin and so forth. We have the Vengeance Demon Hunter that stays alive through the reaping of lesser soul fragments, and that's what keeps it alive. We have Protection Warrior, which is your sword and board typical tank. It is all about the shield and how you can use that shield to block abilities and keep yourself alive as long as possible. And then the Protection Paladin is really kind of a jack of all trades. It really kind of picks on different portions of each spec, each of the different tank specs, while at the same time having this theme of, hey, my abilities are amplified by the holy light and by holy damage, and that is how I'm able to be a holy defender of sorts. And so the Brewmaster has its own little niche in that it's the Master Brewer. I mean, it's right as its name implies. They've really taken out the brews on all the other characters. They've gotten rid of the brews on all the other characters, and they've instead given them to the Brewmaster because they want the Brewmaster to have that unique theme. They've really enhanced the theme of a Brewmaster to be this master of brews that he can drink in order to mitigate damage and make him stronger, buff him, and mitigate damage. And so they've really kind of locked into that theme. So you still have Stagger that is there, but basically the Brewmaster is a staggering, dodging type tank. Like, it's centered around dodge and stagger, whereas like a Demon Hunter is able to center around lifesteal and parry. The Brewmaster is all about staggering the damage over time, drinking brews to help you with that stagger, and then also allowing you to dodge more, basically to be this elusive brawler, right as its mastery implies. It is this elusive person to actually hit, but it keeps your attention and it's frustrating to deal with. And so that is kind of the theme of the Brewmaster. Now, Chi is gone. They've basically given it to Windwalkers only. They feel that Windwalkers is the only one that needs to deal with it. Energy is still here, but it's not as prominent as, paying attention to your stagger bar, which is right underneath your energy bar. And that kind of tells you, hey, this is your stagger. Pay attention to this or you're going to start taking a lot of damage over time, and you'll have ways to mitigate that and so forth. But for most tanks, they basically are, kind of cooldown based, having to deal with their defensive options on a cooldown based system, and that is their main resource, is kind of paying attention to cooldown. Basically, with a not a Windwalker monk, a Brewmaster monk, stagger is probably your most important option to be, paying attention to, and you will use your brews to be able to evade damage as well as some different ways to dodge and get away and be that elusive brawler. So, for Brewmaster Monk overall, just know that they've really enhanced into the theme of a Brewmaster and giving you this theme of drinking brews to buff yourself and to be this elusive brawler that's able to dodge a ton and not take as much damage as you might think. Instead of, getting a full hit in the face like you would with maybe a prot warrior, he would take a full hit to his shield. A Brewmaster, you'll like graze him to the side, and so he's got this stagger damage that hurts, but it doesn't hurt as much as getting punched to the face. That's the best analogy I can give to you for it. But with that being said, let's not wait any longer. Let's go ahead and get into what the Brewmaster is all about in terms of their changed, removed, and new abilities, and then their artifact weapon. So starting with the removed ability, and I always start with the removed abilities first, that you can kind of see how things have changed, and then as we go through changed abilities and new abilities, you can see how it all rounds out. So with removed abilities, know that Blackout Kick is gone. It is now Mistweaver and Windwalker only. That is a removed ability, is no longer available. Honestly, I don't think you should really worry about this much. It's gone. Dizzying Haze is gone, which was that massive AoE threat snare that you were able to throw out. This is really disappointing to me because I loved rolling through as a Brewmaster tank and just chucking elusive brew while leveling. I mean, sorry, not elusive brew. Dizzying Haze while leveling, and basically it would snare everyone around, and it would generate massive aggro. They were so good. Brewmasters were the best at AoE threat because they had Dizzying Haze. It was just so easy to gain AoE threat as a Brewmaster tank, and now because of this, I think this is why they got rid of it, is that because that was just too strong compared to all the other classes. The other classes are going to have a much more difficult time with AoE threat, and I've mentioned this in other videos. There are going to be some classes that are better with AoE threat than others. I think right now, from what I've shown you, your Vengeance Demon Hunters and your Vengeance Demon Hunters and your Prot Warriors are going to have a more difficult time with AoE threat, whereas something like a Protection Warrior and a Protection Paladin and a Guardian Druid are going to be much better with AoE threat. Brewmasters are going to be somewhere in between that. But if they were given something like Dizzying Haze, they would just be broken away, the most powerful AoE threat tanks in the game, and so that's why I think that it's been removed from the game. Elusive Brew has been removed. Now that this is kind of puzzling because it's kind of odd losing a brew, considering that the theme has been enhanced into brew, as I said. However, a new brew takes its place, and they wanted elusive brew to be more, zeroed in on something else instead. So we're going to get to that in the changed abilities. I will say kind of the theme of elusive brew has been put into the mastery of elusive brawler. So we'll take a look at that when we get to changed abilities. Guard has been removed, which was a PvP talent. That was a shield that you put up for yourself, and that really doesn't play well into the theme of a Brewmaster monk. That's putting up shields on yourself. That's saved for other classes to deal with. So, as such, that is basically why I think that it's been taken out. It does come back as a PvP talent, so if you'd like to change it, you can have it. We'll see that in the next video when we look at PvP talents, but for the most part, it's gone. Jab has been removed. Jab's been removed across the board, so really I wouldn't worry too much about Jab being removed. Legacy of the White Tiger has been removed. All stat raid buffs have been removed from the game. Basically, there was so much overlapping between all the stat raid buffs that it didn't make sense for everyone to have a raid buff when there was just so much overlapping. The original intent was for it to be unique, and like you want to have certain classes in the raid, but then it came to the point where, it was like, oh, we don't want to leave anyone out, and so we're just going to give raid buffs to everyone, and then all of a sudden just everyone had raid buffs, and it made no sense to have raid buffs anymore. So, Legacy of the White Tiger is gone. Nimble Brew, I've been saying that this has been completely gone in my other videos. However, I did not ever look at the PvP talent tree for a Brewmaster Monk. Nimble Brew is back as a PvP talent for a Brewmaster monk, but for all cases, it's gone baseline for monks, period, and it was a really strong ability. I'm glad it's coming back as a PvP talent, so you'll still see Nimble Brew out there, but only if a Brewmaster monk talents into it. We'll get to that in the next video. Spinning Crane Kick has been removed. Once again, I think this is the same reason for this is Dizzying Haze. Basically, there's too much AoE threat. When you look at something like a bear druid, they have swipe, which is a very powerful AoE threat tool, and that's, I think, something that's going to make them very powerful. But at the same time, their other thrash is on a cooldown. So basically, if they were to keep spinning Crane Kick in there and Dizzying Haze, that would just be two ways to create absurd AoE threat, and I think that's why it's been taken out for a Brewmaster monk. There's Stance of the Sturdy Ox. All stances have been removed from the game, so any stance that you had, whether it be monk, chakras with holy priest, warriors, you name it, they've all been removed. They really only want druids to be the one that shifts into something else to provide different benefits. I mean, the original stances in the game, which were warriors, have come a long way. And so they did give that back to warriors as a talent for arms, but for the most part, stances have just been removed because it's silly to have a stance just to be able to get into something. So, stance of the Sturdy Ox is gone, but do not worry, it really won't affect you at all. Summon Black Ox statue has been removed. It's a talent now. This is going the same way as the Summon Jade Mist statue. I believe that's the name of it. It's put into the talent tree, so you still have option to grab it if you want, but it's no longer required part of your kit. Surging Mist has been removed. Do not worry, they replaced it with something else. I'm not really sure why they got rid of Surging Mist and then replaced it with something else. Maybe they just didn't like the name, because whatever replaces it is essentially the name, so they pretty much just done a name change. I just don't know why they got rid of Surging Mist. Touch of Death has been removed. Its name is returned, but it's completely different on a different class. But it is completely removed for Brewmaster monks. Ferment has been removed. We're starting to get into the passives of a Brewmaster monk. So Ferment has been removed. Resolve has been removed across all tanks. That was that Resolve was one of their kind of solutions at one point for dealing with tanks, and now that new mechanics have come into play in World of Warcraft Legion, they've basically gotten rid of that. So Resolve is gone, and then also Tiger Strikes and Wave the Monk have been removed as well. Also passives that Blizzard felt were not needed anymore for a Brewmaster monk. So with all that, those are all of the removed abilities for a Brewmaster monk. Let's take a look at the changed abilities. First is Breath of Fire. Breath of Fire no longer costs chi, as chi has been removed, and the extra damage comes from Keg Smash debuff instead of Dizzying Haze. We'll kind of revisit this as we get to Keg Smash, but basically it used to have the extra burn damage if you had Dizzying Haze on the target, and now Keg Smash has its own specific debuff. It's not called anything, but it's just a debuff from Keg Smash that will now give the extra snare. I think if you only use Keg Smash and Breath of Fire to do the combo there, nothing will really change for you. But if you use Dizzying Haze and then Breath of Fire, that's where things will change because Dizzying Haze is gone. Crackling Jade Lightning no longer costs any energy, so you can now use it as much as possible, as long as possible. It's a 40-yard range, so this is technically a Brewmaster's, way to hit targets from afar, and I'm not sure, but it looks like they updated the spell visual a little bit on it too. It's pretty cool. So this basically gives the Brewmaster its AoE threat. You've seen tanks get this, such as bears having Moonfire as their baseline ability and so forth, and this is just to give them some type of threat from a distance, and that's what it's for. Expel Harm has been removed from all the other classes except for Brewmaster Monk. Basically, I have written here, and this is several times with the Brewmaster that I have this written here, theme stays the same, but it's a different ability, okay? It costs 15 energy down from 40, and it has no cooldown as opposed to 15 second cooldown. So let's go ahead and take a look at this ability so we can understand what it is. So you draw in the positive chi of all your healing spheres and expel negative chi, damaging the nearest enemy for 10% of the amount hit. So the old theme was, I believe, it would basically, you would heal yourself and then you deal damage to the nearest enemy based on the amount of healed. The amount of healed was like, the damage you would deal was something like 33% of the amount healed. So now you're only dealing 10% of the amount healed, but you also have to draw in all of your healing spheres. So that's the big change for Expel Harm, is that you're basically drawing in positive chi of all your healing spheres and expel negative chi, healing yourself and damaging the nearest ally for 10% of the amount healed. So the tooltip is vague. I've been very frustrated with tooltips in World of Warcraft Legion. They're not very, they don't explain very well what's going on. But basically, I believe you will get more healing based on how many healing spheres you have around you, and then the damage will be increased based on how much healing you have from there. So that's what it is. And remember, you can actually, and it says I can't do that yet. That's because I have no healing spheres up. When I start getting healing spheres up, we'll take a look at this and see how this functions. It's on my bars, so we'll take a look at it later. With that being said, Fortifying Brew has had its cooldown increased from 3 minutes to 10 minutes. So this is a big nerf. Now, I want to say that the reason they're doing this, and they've done this for several, we've been looking at several videos now for tanks. The reason why they're doing this with like Survival Instincts and Shield Wall is the fact that Blizzard wants you to really think when you use your defensive cooldowns. I believe it's become a commonality too much in PvE raids in which you're able to be like, it's okay, I'll just pop, you know, so-and-so, Shield Wall, you name it, or Fortifying Brew, and it'll be up back in 3 minutes. I'll be okay. They don't want that anymore. They want you to actually think about it. So, it still functions the same, but it's now got a really long cooldown that you're going to have to pay attention to. And there's some artifact abilities that I believe tie in some dodge as well. You're going to be seeing dodge a lot as a Brewmaster Monk. They basically, Bear Druids had a little bit of it, of dodge, and they basically said, nah, that's kind of a Brewmaster Monk thing. We're taking that away from Guardian Druids, and we're saying, okay, you're just going to have a really high health pool. And so that's what I mean when I say they've kind of diversified the tank specs, very much like they're diversifying, you know, like 3 separate DPS specs on some of the DPS classes to make them very interesting in their own unique way of tanking, which I really do like that they're making this change. So, know that is the big change for Fortifying Brew. Keg Smash. Its range has been increased from melee to 15 yards. So you now have a 15-yard range on your Keg Smash, okay? It no longer generates any chi, which makes sense because chi is now gone. And it reduces the cooldown on your brews by 4 seconds. We're going to start getting into the brews here really soon. You have a new one, and then you have one that's being changed. And this is going to be a big deal. Is basically you're going to be using your abilities to bring down the cooldown of your brews, and that's one of the themes of a Brewmaster Monk, is just getting those brews up as soon as possible. And Protection Paladin kind of took a little bit of this. That's why Protection Paladin, I feel like, kind of took a little bit of every spec and then enhanced it by the fact that you can use your holy abilities to enhance your protection defensive measures, and you can heal with the holy light, so to say, or defend with the holy light. And so that's where this is the part that basically Protection Paladins get from a Brewmaster, is the fact that, you know, using an ability to reduce the cooldown on your defensive measures, which are going to be your brews, and that is with Keg Smash. Now, right now in the tooltip, it does say I have a 25-yard range. That's actually through an artifact weapon enhancement, which we'll get to later. But basically, you chuck it out there, and remember, it's an 8-yard radius in which it reduces all the movement speed by 50% for 15 seconds. So you have 15 seconds with that Keg Smash debuff to use your Breath of Fire to then put the dot on them. So I did mention I would go back to Breath of Fire so that we could discuss the dot damage, and it basically comes off that Keg Smash debuff. The only thing that's kind of disappointing is that the radius is so small. You know, with the old Dizzying Haze, you had this massive radius and then you could hit a lot of people. That's not going to be the case with with this new brew, unfortunately. While I can spin around and, get different targets with, with my Breath of Fire, unfortunately, you're not going to be able to hit it, do as much AoE threat as you used to be able to with the whole Dizzying Haze combo and Breath of Fire. So you're going to have to really work on AoE threat as a Brewmaster Monk now, something that you really haven't had to in the past. With that being said, let's move to Purifying Brew, and this is where the brews have really changed, okay? So, we have a Purifying Brew. The way it used to work, I'm just going to read through this list. First off, it now has a 19.2 second cooldown up from 1 second, so it has a big cooldown now, so you're going to have to pay attention when you actually use this. It shares a cooldown with something called Iron Skin Brew, which is a new ability which we will get to later. It has 3 charges shared with Iron Skin Brew. So you will have 3 charges of brew, and then, well, actually, hang on, let me double check and make sure I don't have a talent that increases the, okay, I don't. I just want to make sure I didn't have a talent that was increasing the charges. So you have 3 charges that are shared with Iron Skin Brew. So if I go ahead and pop a Purifying Brew, which I don't have any damage at the moment, so I don't think I'm going to be able to show this very effectively, unfortunately. But I have 3 charges of Purifying Brew that I can use. It only clears 50% of the damage staggered. So it used to clear all of your staggered damage. Now it only clears 50% of the damage staggered. So you have to be careful when you use this. And then lastly, it no longer costs 1 chi, which chi are gone, so it doesn't make a difference. So it's just, it doesn't cost anything. It's just got a cooldown tied to it. 19.2 seconds, 3 charges. Is basically between this and the Iron Skin Brew, you're going to have a 6-second recharge. You're going to have 6 second, basically a 6-second cooldown on these if you space them out to be able to do this. So you're going to have to kind of choose between Iron Skin Brew and this one when you need different abilities and when it's like most advantageous to use this. I really think this is a really interesting, I think this is a really interesting playstyle. I really do. And it gets even more interesting when we have the fact that something like Cake Smash will reduce the cooldown on those brews by a full 4 seconds. So one thing I do want to see is that I'm not sure if it will change the cooldown on Fortifying Brew. When it gets down into the 1 minute time pool, we will check and see if that is the case, but I have a feeling it only applies to your Purifying and Iron Skin Brews. So that's everything with the new Purifying Brew. And when we get into the Iron Skin Brew, we'll talk about Purifying Brew a little bit more. Resuscitate has had its cast time increased by approximately 0.25 seconds, so a little bit of a nerf there. Tiger Palm now costs 25 energy. It no longer allows attacks to be ignored by armor for 20 seconds, so that debuff, that kind of, it really felt like a kind of an upkeep item, which you've heard in my videos. If you've been watching a lot of my videos, I hate upkeep items with a passion, so I'm glad that that is gone. And it also reduces the cooldown on brews by 1 second. So if you're using Tiger Palm, you're able to reduce the cooldown on your brews by 1 second each time you use it. However, it does cost energy, so you have to be careful. However, there are very few things that actually cost energy as a Brewmaster Monk. So you have Cake Smash basically, and then you have Tiger Palm. Anything that reduces the cooldown on your brews, I believe, will be what will cost energy. So it's going to be about you as a tank trying to get the cooldowns cooldowns down as quickly as possible so that you can have those defensive measures up as quickly as possible. Zen Meditation, its cooldown's been increased from 3 minutes to 5 minutes, and its damage reduction has been reduced from 90% down to 60%. So as I mentioned, there's been a significant drop in basically your defensive cooldowns. They really want you to think when you use these abilities now. 5-minute cooldown is no joke. It's saying, hey, yes, you're going to get this 60% reduction in damage, but think about it. Don't be just like, use this and then it'll be up in no time. You don't want that to be the case. And unfortunately, I missed Fortifying Brew, so I'm going to go ahead and use it again, and hopefully by the end of the video, I'll be able to see it again. Hopefully it won't be too late. I won't miss it next time. So once again, with Zen Meditation and with something like Fortifying Brew, their cooldowns were increased for that region. And then it's also been nerfed with that damage reduction from 90% down to 60%. Gift of the Ox no longer summons healing spheres based on multi-strikes. So there is a change there to that, and it now summons spheres based on taking damage. I'm not sure if I can get this to proc off a tanking training dummy. We will try. I'm always afraid of using a tanking training dummy, but we will try and see if we can use it off of a tanking training dummy to see if we can get a 2 proc. But I'll have to be careful here. So before we test that out here, though, on the tanking dummy, we need to discuss Mastery Elusive Brawler. So Mastery, this is another one where there's just so many changes, and I'm like, just look at the tooltip. So it says, no longer increases stagger amount, which was kind of the base of Elusive Brawler, was increasing your stagger amount. Instead, it has been changed. Let's go ahead and look at it here. Mastery Elusive Brawler. Each time you are hit by an attack, you gain a stacking 16% increased dodge chance until your next successful dodge. And then it also increases attack power by 16%. That's standard, increasing attack power for all of these masteries for tanks. So basically the theme of Elusive Brew has been put into Elusive Brawler. So it is now the new mastery. It actually makes sense now. It really didn't make sense for it to increase the amount of stagger. The name didn't even make sense with it. It just didn't work. So now you have Elusive Brawler, which gives you lots of dodge chance. And so that is basically, it just builds into the Brewmaster theme perfectly. You're dodging around, dodging and weaving, able to escape. You're this elusive brawler that, they can't seem to get a straight hit on you, a kill shot on you, because you're able to just kind of, wobble around as you are drinking your brews to enhance your defensive capabilities and stay alive. So that is the change to Mastery in World of Warcraft Legion for a Brewmaster. So let's see if we can get some healing spheres to pop. I don't know if we will, because it's a little bit different. As you can see, the stagger is building up here. I will be able to use my Purifying Brew, though, to show you it's there, and you can even see Elusive Brawler in the top right hand here, so you can see where it changes there. But basically, stagger seems to work much better in this than it does in Warlords of Draenor. So I really do like that change that they've done there with this. But it doesn't look like I'm going to get healing spheres to actually pop for me so that I can use them. I would try again, but I have to be careful of my health. And my health does not go up very much. It doesn't look like I'm going to get any healing spheres to proc, though. So I'm going to stop right there before I kill myself, and I would really hate for that to happen because I don't know where it would spawn me or if it would bug out. So we'll just leave it at that. I don't think I'll be able to show you Expel Harm in all its glory and its changes, but basically just know that you have to have healing spheres up for your Expel Harm to actually work, and that's why the cooldown is now non-existent. Instead of that 15-second cooldown, it's now non-existent because you have to have healing spheres up active to actually be able to do something. So with that, let's go ahead and look at the new abilities. First one is called Blackout Strike. So this one's kind of cool. This I guess you could say, it takes away Blackout Kick. Blackout Strike with a blast of chi energy, dealing 129,000 damage, 3-second cooldown. So basically, this is straight damage, right there. And I love how he wields his staff when he does it. Just kind of whips it around and then strikes it. So it's a straight damage attack. There are talents that play with this, but for the most part, this is just your straight, big damage attack that you have. And then there are ways that you can play with this through talents to make it even more powerful. The next ability is what you've already seen just a while ago, is a Fuse. This is your new heal, replacing Surging Mist. It's a fast, efficient heal, healing the target for 89,000. It costs 30 energy, so you're going to have to be careful with its usage, just like, because, the more you're using a Fuse, and it doesn't heal that much, you're basically taking away from reducing the cooldown on your brews. So it's something that you're going to have to pay attention to. The next new ability is the one that's really important. It's called Iron Skin Brew. Okay? Iron Skin Brew increases the damage you delay with stagger by an additional 40% for 7.5 seconds. So this is interesting. Basically, if you're in a position where you feel like you, as a tank, can take more damage, you can say, I'm going to pop Iron Skin Brew. Have a 7.5 seconds in which I take even more damage staggered, okay? I'm going to stagger even more damage. I can put it over time. And you can use that with Iron Skin Brew. But remember, it shares a cooldown with Purifying Brew, which then clears 50% of your staggering damage. So you basically are going to have to play back and forth between these two different specs, between these two different brews, to try and either clear your stagger amount or increase the amount you're actually taking with stagger. So, increases the damage you delay with stagger by an additional 40% by 7.5 seconds. That's a lot. To explain that even further, we need to go into this other new ability, which is going to be, it's just called Stagger. They're actually giving it its own ability name now, so you can actually see what it's going to do. You shrug off attacks, delaying 45% of physical damage, instead making it over 10 seconds. Affects magical attacks at half effectiveness. So 22.5% for will delay magical damage, and 45% for physical damage. So that is something to take note of here. It kind of makes Brewmaster monks kind of more of a physical tank that is better at dealing with physical tanking more than it is magical damage, magical tanking. That has been kind of the case for a lot of these classes. I would say Prot Warrior is another one that's more physical oriented, whereas something like a Bear Druid can more equally tank both of them at the same level. So, like I said in several of these tanking videos, they're really trying to separate the tanks, say, hey, some tanks are going to be better at physical damage, some tanks are going to be better against magical damage, some tanks are going to be better at AoE, some tanks are going to be better at single target. It's going to be up to, what the talent trees can provide and what you can do, and, kind of what is given to the class as a spec. So it's interesting, and I like it. So, with that being said, basically, you're staggering 45% of your physical damage. This increases it by another 40%. You stagger by an additional 40% for 7.5 seconds. I do not see where, if we can actually see if this stagger rises. I'll use Iron Skin Brew right here, and I don't think it's going to show up on stagger because it's a baseline buff. But basically, I'm not quite sure if that increases it from 45 to like 60% or so, like 45% of 45 increases to, that much, or if you actually will start staggering 85% of all physical damage taken, which means that you're going to build up your stagger really quickly if you're taking damage, which means you're going to have to pay attention to whether you're using Purifying Brew or Iron Skin Brew, and make sure you have enough charges for Purifying Brew so that you don't put too much dot pressure on yourself that the healers can't handle it. So there's a lot of interesting options here. I just realized I missed Fortifying Brew again. There's a lot of interesting options for you to deal with in terms of trying to stagger that damage and keep yourself alive, and using those 3 charges to the best of your ability to make sure that you're choosing the best one at the right time to mitigate damage as best as possible. Honestly, I really like it. I think it gives a nice big skill cap for Brewmaster monks and makes it a lot of fun. You're really going to notice the bad Brewmasters from the good Brewmasters, which I think is really cool. Whereas other tanks, I think, are very simple, much more, much more friendly to players who aren't as experienced, such as maybe probably a Guardian Druid. Brewmaster is going to have a much higher skill cap in terms of being able to be very good at it. So this is a lot of fun, and I really do like it. The only other new ability to look at is Celestial Fortune, which is you have a chance equal to your critical strike chance to be healed for an additional 65% of the amount healed. So If I'm not sure if that's your own heals or if that's basically if that's your own heals or that's other people healing you as well. For instance, you have, if someone heals you for 100k, your crit strike chance, whatever it may be, for right now, my crit strike chance is 18%. I have an 18% chance um, to have that person heal me for 65 in addition to the 100 damage that they healed. I'm not sure if that's the case or if it only applies to what you yourself are able to heal. My guess is it works on any incoming heals for you, which gives you some more healing baseline. So that's pretty cool. Also, do note that on the little nice new mini bar that they have below my character, it does show stagger amount there too as well, so that's really nice to have. So, with all of that, we have now gone through all of the abilities for a Brewmaster Monk, all the changes for a Brewmaster Monk in World of Warcraft Legion. There's a lot of fun stuff there. With that, let's go ahead. Oh, I just did a Celestial Fortune there on my heals. That's pretty cool. With that, let's go ahead and take a look at the artifact weapon that is available to us. First, we'll look at the artifact weapon ability, which is pretty awesome. It's called Exploding Keg. 40-yard range, hurls a flaming keg at the target location, dealing 312 fire damage and causing nearby enemies to causing them to miss their melee attacks for the next 3 seconds. So this is a pretty amazing AoE threat if you want to. You know, you don't have Dizzying Haze anymore, but this is pretty awesome right here. So I'm going to launch this out here. You're going to see this big keg just kind of fly out there and then explode and deal lots of damage. So that's really cool. It gives you an option out there for, you know, you don't have Dizzying Haze anymore, but it gives you a 40-yard range option out there to deal a lot of AoE threat if you need to. So you can use that. And then you can get in close and start using Keg Smash and Breath of Fire to pile on that AoE threat. But do remember that your AoE threat now is basically Breath of Fire and Keg Smash. So you have to be careful. It's going to take a bit more skill now to deal with AoE threat than it used to. Breath of Fire, 15-second cooldown. Keg Smash, a 7.32-second cooldown. So be cautious. I would say Brewmasters have gone from one of the best AoE, easily the best AoE tanking spec in terms of grabbing threat to one of the mid-pack in that range. I still think they're probably better off than something like a warrior, a prot warrior, but still something that can't be dismissed. They've lost a lot of AoE threat gen, and that's probably because Blizzard wants things to be a little bit more difficult than it's used to be in the past. With that, well, not only that, but they're trying to bring the specs in line because Brewmaster Monk's AoE threat generation was out of control compared to what the other classes could do. So, basically, I would say Brewmasters are in between right now. I haven't gotten to Blood DKs, but basically they're in between, with Guardian, Druids, and Prot Paladins being above them, and Prot Warriors and Vengeance Demon Hunters being below them. So, with that, let's go ahead and take a look at the artifact weapon. We've seen the artifact weapon abilities, so let's take a look at the artifact weapon here. I really do like the abilities you have, and it really hones in on what the theme of this class is. You know, brews and everything and dodging, that's all it is. So let's go ahead and take a look at this here. Our first one is called Full Keg. After we get Exploding Egg, we have Full Keg, increases the damage dealt by Keg Smash by 10%. We have Gifted Student, you gain 3% critical strike chance for 3 seconds after dodging or healing from Gift of the Ox. Do you remember that that will then help with Celestial Fortune in your healing? 3 ranks there, 3% per rank. I do not believe it talks about it. It's dealing with the seconds. I do believe it's the percentage on the critical strike chance. So 1% per rank on critical strike chance increase. You have Obstinate Determination. Gift of the Ox summons an additional healing sphere when your health drops below 35%. And remember, these healing spheres basically can be consumed pretty well with Expel Harm. So just take note of that. We have Face Palm. Tiger Palm has a 30% chance to deal 300% of normal damage and reduce the remaining cooldown on your brews by an additional 1 second. So once again, more reducing of the brews. That's basically both your Tiger Palm and your Keg Smash are responsible for that. And then the last option here is Dragon Fire Brew. After using Breath of Fire, you breathe fire 2 additional times, each dealing 21,000 damage. So we'll see if we can show that pop up here. Breath of fire, and then there's the other one, and there's the other one. So you breathe a lot of fire with Dragon Fire Brew, so that's pretty cool. In terms of AoE ability, I don't think it's going to be that great. I mean, we can fire it off here, and there's the little one. So the little ones come afterwards. It does. It's more like a continuation of Dragon Fire Breath. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of this. I feel like if it was worded differently, it was more like you breathe fire over. I feel like if it was like not a channeled ability, but it is an ability that it, like worked over time, like Crackling Jade Lightning, except for without the channeling, like it would be worth more. So you deal 56,000 damage over the course of 3 seconds, and you're just sitting there breathing fire, and you can move everywhere. I think it would help out with AoE threat. Considering you lost stuff like Dizzying Haze, I don't want things to be overpowered, but I do feel that monks are more on the single target side now than they are on the AoE side. Moving into the bulk of this tree here, we have Potent Kick. Increases the duration of Iron Skin Brew by 1.5 seconds, so it's 0.5 seconds per rank, 3 ranks. Originally it would be only 6 seconds. We have Hot Blooded, increases the damage of Breath of Fire's periodic burning effect by 75% and causes it to reduce the target's damage done to you by 6%. So basically 3 ranks. I want to say that affects both the damage done to you and the burning effect, which means it would be 25, 50, and 75%, and then also 2, 4, and 6% on the reduction, and that'll be 3 ranks. It could only be one of those, but it could also be both of those. I'm not quite sure which one it'll be, but it could go either way. But it gives a defensive effect to Breath of Fire, which is pretty good. We have Healthy Appetite, increases maximum health by 3%, 3 ranks, that'll be 1% per rank. Dark Side of the Moon, Blackout Strike also reduces the damage to your target's next auto attack against you by 6%. So Blackout Strike now has a defensive capability with that change there, and I realize I just missed Fortifying Brew again, and I do not think I will get a chance for the rest of this video to see if brews reduce it. So, Blackout Strike now has a defensive ability out of it. Blackout Strike reduces the damage of your target's next auto attack against you by 6%. That's 3 ranks, that'll be 2% per rank. We have Swift as a Coursing River. I believe that's from, what, Mulan? So that's pretty cool. It's either, I can't even remember, it's either Mulan or Pocahontas. But either way, that's pretty awesome that they put that in there. Activating Fortifying Brew, Purifying Brew, or Iron Skin Brew increases your movement speed by 6% for 15 seconds, stacking up to 5 times. So let's go ahead and just test this out here. We'll just use Iron Skin Brew 3 times, and I get faster each time. We're now at 18%. Swift as a Coursing River from this. I think it's from Mulan, so that's pretty cool that they added that in there. We have Smashed. I got Dark Side of the Moon. Yes? Yeah. So we have Smashed. Increases the range of Keg Smash by 10 yards, so this moves it from 15 to 25. So that definitely, I think, is helpful to have a 25-yard range on Keg Smash. It basically means you can chuck it from here, small 8-yard radius, deal everyone with that damage, and then you can hit them with Breath of Fire if you're able to close the gap on them within 15 seconds, which should be pretty easy. Staggering around, Fortifying Brew increases the damage you delay with Stagger by an additional 6%, so originally it's only 20% like it is on Live, 20, 20, and 20 for all of the abilities, and instead it's going to be 20, 26, and 20, and that is because of this talent tree right here. 3 ranks, 2% per rank all the way up. The Epic Portrait down here, Fortification, activating Fortifying Brew grants you 25% dodge for 21 seconds. This has been happening each time I've been trying to activate Fortifying Brew, but basically it's just another application of dodge for you that will be available. So, once again, theme of the Brewmaster, dodging, drinking brews, enhancing your brews, having your brews enhance your ability to dodge and stagger more. That's all the theme of a Brewmaster monk. Over here we have Obsidian Fists, increases the critical strike chance of Blackout Strike by 9%. That's going to be 3% per rank. We have Overflow. Each time Gift of the Ox generates a healing sphere, it has a 15% chance to instead generate a greater healing sphere that heals for twice as much. 3 ranks, 5% per rank on that, so definitely an option. Unfortunately, I can't really see what it will look like now because I can't take damage on here. But that is, it's more damage mitigation. Well, damage mitigation. It's more healing that you can do. It's your main healing component. It's going to be Expel Harm and your healing spheres from Gift of the Ox. The last one here is going to be Brewmaster. Your last epic portrait, which is activating Purifying Brew or Iron Skin Brew, grants you 10% dodge for 1.5 seconds. So I'll go ahead and activate it right here. Iron Skin Brew, you can see that dodge really quickly, 10% chance. So, as I mentioned at the very beginning of this video, they would have a theme for Brewmaster monks, and that theme is easily going to be basically dodge, and your brew's ability to stagger and dodge. That is all Brewmaster is about, and I think they've really done a wonderful job. They finally, I think, have them where they want it to be. So I really do think this is a great artifact weapon. It really hones in the theme of the spec even more so. I just realized that I did not even tell you guys the name of this artifact weapon. It's called Fuzan the Wanderer's Companion. Very much plays into Brewmaster, gosh, I can't even think of his name, but Chen Stormstout. There we go. Chen Stormstout, and how he just kind of, wandered around with his brew making and so forth, if you remember from Mists of Pandaria. So that's really cool. I really do think Brewmasters have one of the most fun, kind of interesting ways of mitigating damage in the game, and I think a lot of people will enjoy playing a Brewmaster monk in World of Warcraft Legion. In the next video, we will go over the PvE talents and the PvP talents, which should enhance your ability to defend and do even better in terms of mitigating damage and playing into that theme. And it should also, it's been a while since I looked at it, a day or so since I've looked at it, but there also should be some options in there to kind of decide, whether you can zero in on some PvE or, sorry, not PvE, whether you can zero in on more AoE or non-AoE. But we will look at that and see what that provides in the next video. That is everything for this video. I hope you guys enjoy this. And from Temple of the Five Dawns, I will see you guys later. Teal us out.